circular chat focusing on something that we all need to fight against: climate change. The Circular Chat is an initiative by ICCE to develop and promote the idea of a circular economy. The chat's aim to engage key actors to mobilize system solutions at scale, and in that regard, we wish to bring to you the opinions and immense knowledge of leading experts in the field of climate change and the various facets it covers. I'm Susanna Lal, and I have with me the guest speaker today, Mr. Philippe Malbranche. Philippe Malbranche has been working over more than 3 decades on renewable energies, mainly solar technologies. He is the Additional Director General of the International Solar Alliance. He was previously the Director General at INES, the main French solar energy research institute. He is also a member of the steering committee of the European Photovoltaic Technology and Innovation Platform, participates in the visiting committees of several European solar energy research institutes, and advises various organizations regarding roadmap development and project selection. It is wonderful to have you with us today, Philippe, and I would like to welcome you to the show.
Thank you. I'm very pleased for your invitation, and I'm very pleased to participate to your series of webinars.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Philippe, when I was reading about you, I found that the goal of your professional activities is to contribute to the rapid transformation of our energy system to a sustainable system, right? So, even Agenda 2030 has a special focus on planet through sustainable production and consumption. But we understand that India is a nation which is extremely dependent on coal, and we are importing sizable chunks of it to meet our power needs. But considering the tropical nature of its geography, is it safe to say that solar power would be a good, feasible substitute? And if so, how close are we or how behind are we in tapping solar energy to our full potential?
That's a good question. I'm not an Indian specialist, so I will, within the International Solar Alliance, we are used to deal with any country, and we are not focusing, even if we are based in Delhi, India, we are not seen as Indian specialists. We have to work for all the countries worldwide. But what I can say, I will insist on two points. The first one is considering any countries. Now we have had a lot of studies from various universities in Germany, in Finland, in Stanford, even in France. We had recently studies regarding the feasibility of 100% renewable scenario. It's many people say there's no sun at night, there's no wind sometimes in winter, so it's not possible. Yes, you can always argue that going beyond 90% is difficult. Yes, in the range of 90, 95 till 100 may be difficult. But from all these studies, looking at the balance of the grid, the electrical system, the power system, and everything, all these studies, so in whichever institute in Europe or in the US, they have all shown that it was fully feasible. And India is not an exception. So what you can say for India, considering the latitude close to the tropic, so the rather low latitude, the imbalance between that you may have in northern latitude countries, where you have a huge difference between summer and winter, and it creates a problem for in the northern hemisphere. It's always difficult for December, January, February. Here, it's much less an issue because it's much the difference between summer and winter is not so huge. And you always consider it as a mix, and you always have more sun in summer, but less wind. Usually you have less wind, and more wind in winter, and usually you have less sun. So more or less, it's always rather balanced. But you always have to consider that you may have 1 week, 2 weeks with, rainy season with some anticyclone. So you may have some trouble. So of course you have to look at some flexibility issues, some storage, and it shows that with hydropower, which is fully dispatchable, with interconnection with your neighboring countries on the east, on the west side, and in the future, to go to this, I was talking about this last 10, last 20, last 10%, in between 80 to go to 100. This will be done with using the coal power plant, using the gas turbine, by retrofitted with new fuel, which will be hydrogen based. So it will be hydrogen ready gas turbine. It will be, it could be, you may use new fuel, ammonia or whatever. So non-polluting fuel at all, which will be made with hydrogen, made with solar energy. So in the future, I don't see it as an issue. You could tell me, yes, but we are a very densely populated area. Will we have enough space? There's huge of space in Rajasthan, in Gujarat, and also Karnataka, or, there are space. And in the future, we will be using more and more buildings, or the cities, or the rooftop of large buildings, rooftop of any household. That will be the future. So this will require no additional space, and it will be distributed from north to the south of India. So to me, it's largely feasible. Especially, you have quite a nice strategy now ongoing, in which you are planning to develop local manufacturing. So with the goal not to import everything, and you have a large industrial player coming into this game, if I may say. You have Adani, Reliance, Tata, or many going to invest quite a lot. So you have the market, you have the industry getting prepared for that, and you have the resources, the wind on the coast, sun almost everywhere, and hydro in the Himalayan chain. Connection possible to the east and the west, even if there are some reflection about the connection with the Middle East region, with Oman and this region. So to me, yes, there's no issue. It will be feasible.
Right. I'm actually very glad to hear that. And those are some very interesting facts and what's coming up for India. And I feel that if India taps solar energy to its full potential, it actually has a good future ahead. So yes, I'm glad to hear that. Moving on, Philippe, one of the targets of the Agenda 2030 is the prosperity of human beings, without any inequality. But many believe and many experts do say that most of the renewable energy sources, or more specifically the methods and technologies to harness them, is only possible by rich and developed nations. So is that the case, and is that presumption incorrect? And can you give us some insights regarding the same?
Yes, no, it's fully incorrect. It's fully wrong if I may be a bit blunt. Or, let's put it this way. It has been true. I've been in this field for 4 decades, and I would say in the 90s in Germany, when they started with the 100,000 rooftop program, it was seen as crazy because it was really expensive to do this. But since these 30 years, its costs have been divided by 100 or several hundred.
Okay.
And now it is really cheap, so it's no longer true. And all the poor, whether you can be talking about the poor people or the poorest country, everybody has interest to develop this. I would say even the poorest country, poor people without access to easy electricity to the grid. They are paying their own energy at very high cost. They are buying battery cells, they are buying kerosene lamps, and it's well known that it's much more expensive than conventional electricity. So they have interest to develop solar because it's cheaper. It's really cost effective. One thing which is true is that it's expensive. You have to pay the upfront investment when you want to buy even a small. I have a small PV module here. When you have to buy this, it's like if you were buying your energy for 10 years or for 20 years at once. So it may represent a lot. But that's not an issue regarding the cost. As I said, it's really cost effective. Usually it's paying off in 1 or 2 years. Such small solar home system, solar lanterns, or even solar pumps, it's really paying off. So it's more about finding the right way to bring a loan, to have the right business model, that's what we call pay as you go or pay as you grow. If you deliver water, you will just pay per liter that you get, or if you drive a taxi, you will pay per kilometer that you are driving. This is more about this. We need specific business models, for sure, to help people to afford it, but it's really cost effective. So for household, for small system, but for any consumer, larger system, and even it will help you to generate activity in this poor region when you have always a lack of power to do some welding or grinding, or also to do some activities in a workshop, or you want a sewing machine or whatever. Having such electricity helps you to generate activities. And even at the country, we may dream, but at the country level, now sun-rich country like Morocco, Mauritania, a poor country like Mauritania or Namibia in Africa. These are fossil fuel importing countries, but with solar producing hydrogen, they will be able to export things. So it's not only cost effective. Solar will help in generating revenue, in avoiding to import fossil fuel. So it's a huge help. We just have to find the right way to get it financed.
Right. right. I think that answers my next question also, because I was going to talk about uh, Agenda 2030, how it also focuses on eradicating global poverty. And even today, most inhabitants of developing countries rely on kerosene rather than electricity for their basic requirements like lighting. So, of course, since you're saying that solar energy is cost effective, I think it would be very helpful for them to, save financially as well. So, I think, yes. Moving on, Philippe, uh, talking about India and our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he himself is a strong advocate of renewable energy and especially solar energy. And while India targets 500 gigawatts of solar production by 2030, there's an increasing discussion on the waste management of photovoltaic cells along with other waste. So, what technologies do you think are available to tackle huge waste that will be generated at the end of life?
Um, to me, I would be a bit provocative saying that it's not a real issue, provided it is well managed. And like any product, the way of managing this issue is first to reduce the amount of waste. And reducing the amount of waste, first thing to do is to select the right product with the proper lifetime. If you have a short-term vision in which you will look only at the lowest cost, okay, you will buy a cheap PV module, a cheap stuff, but you will not sure it will last the 20 years you are expecting. It may be with some poor quality product, lifetime may be quite shorter. It may be less than 10 years. If instead of the average lifetime of 20 years, if you select a high quality product, it could be 30, it could be 40 years. So, I worked in solar energy since the 80s, and I still have one PV module from the 80s, which is working well in my home. So 40 years, and it's still okay. So the best way to reduce the amount of waste is to well select when you are procuring, when you are purchasing the component, is to select a component which will be high quality and which will last long, and it will not become a waste before a very long time period. So that's the first thing, is to reduce the number of to reduce the amount of waste by selecting the right components. And then maybe you can also reuse. If you have properly designed the PV module, some of them you can, I've seen some PV module with no polymer. You just separate the two classes, and then if you have some connection to do some rewiring, you can do it, and then you close them again, and that's it. This is happening. It's not mainstream at all, but it has been developed, that type of things. And finally, of course, if it's a waste, if it's arriving, okay, it's a waste, you cannot reuse it, then you have to recycle, and you have many processes. In Europe, we have several processes being developed. In Japan, also additional processes on that, whether you can crush everything and to select the various pieces. Then you select the glass, you select the polymer, you select copper, the tin, the aluminium, you get rid of the frame and you have the aluminium, etc. So, and you have more clever ways in which you try to separate and you recover the sheet of glass it's not. It's more an issue of managing it well. I forgot to tell you about when regulation is important also. If because you may have toxic material in, for instance, in the glass. In the glass, to have a glass very transparent, you may use antimonium. But antimonium may be a toxic component. But you can say, okay, I want glass without antimonium, or I want a solder. You know, when you do the cell interconnection or the soldering into the PV module, you can say, I want solder or wiring using no lead at all, because you may have few percent of lead, and when you want to recycle, you have some lead to take care of. But you may say, okay, I don't want to purchase a PV module with lead inside, with fluorine, with fluor in the backsheet. So you see, regulation is important, and proper procurement activity. And last thing I would say is, we hear a lot about this, but it's really not an issue in terms of amount of volume compared to the amount of glass that you know, domestic consumption, the bottle of glass, or even in the car industry, a car, it's full of you know, you have the car windows, the car windscreen, the hatchback. It's always glass and polymer, and some wiring for the defrosting. So it's nothing different from that. We have only few slices of silicon, which are very thin, and silicon is not at all a problem polluting. It's not something. It's not part of any pollution, silicon. So to me, it can be well managed. It will not be an issue. It's not a huge drawback. You know.
And I think that's really important. The waste management is the most important part of it all. Yeah. So Philippe, since you're an expert in solar energy and you know that solar energy will soon be unbeatable compared to other non-renewable resources, what do you envision for the future of solar energy in regard to its cost effectiveness and ability to compete with conventional fuels?
There's no longer an issue. You know, the economic challenge is over. You know, wherever there's no fossil fuel subsidized, we can compete. You know, I'm sure maybe not all the people who listen don't know, but now in many auctions in India, the average auction is in the range of 2 rupee. Worldwide, now most of the auctions are in between 1 to 2 US cents per kilowatt hour. So it's very cheap. You know, coal is in the range of 3 US cents per kilowatt hour per unit. In Europe, it's in the range of 3 to 4. So now PV is cheaper. And then so that's to supply electricity. And I already discussed about the mix that you need wind, you need hydro, you need some flexibility and interconnection and storage. But then for the future of that, the beauty of this low-cost electricity is that we will now be able to produce hydrogen. And hydrogen will be the new fuel of the future, non-polluting at all, provided, you know, hydrogen is very polluting when you produce it from coal or from gas. But when you produce it from water, just as electrolyzer, with electrolyzer producing hydrogen on one side and oxygen on the other side, there's no pollution at all. And with this cheap electricity, we are going to be able to to produce a huge amount of hydrogen. And with these two legs, PV providing direct electricity in the grid, and solar providing supplying the electrolyzer to produce hydrogen that you will use directly in the in the steel processes, in the steel manufacturing plant. You have already a lot of steel manufacturers who are committed to develop, to provide now green steel. So steel which is made without any CO2 emission in the future. And this is happening within 3 years from now. By 2025, Mercedes, Volkswagen, Daimler, all these big car manufacturers, they are saying we are going to use green steel. So it will require a huge amount of hydrogen, huge amount of PV. And yes, PV is really the key solution. The only challenge which is remaining is the speed of reduction of the CO2 emission, because in the meantime, you have the coal power plants still producing. And we need to speed up this transition. That's the only challenge. Solar will win, but maybe will win too late regarding the CO2 emission, the amount of CO2 emission. So we have to push for quick implementation. Every PV module installed, it's some CO2 emission avoided somewhere. So we have to push for that. We have to fight against, people or lobbies instilling doubt, always saying it's not possible. We try to maintain with clean coal, clean gas, everything is becoming clean because you are going to capture the CO2 and sequestrate it. No, they are saying yes that this renewable energy scenario are not feasible, but we have to present it as a win-win situation. That's the best way. Even utilities, even job creation is clearly in favor of solar energy. We will have to train a lot of people, but that is the way to really solve lots of our problems. We have not so many opportunities. Non-CO2 emitting solution are solar, wind, hydro, little bit of biomass or geothermal. That potential is not so huge, and nuclear. But nuclear has other disadvantage, so that's why so many people are pushing now for 100% renewable energy scenario, and it's clearly now feasible and cost effective.
Right. Thank you so much, Philippe. And I hope me and you, all of us, play a role in accelerating this transition. It was a wonderful chat with you, Philippe. And I'm just checking the questions in the chat box, and I don't think we have any so far, though the audience has really appreciated your insights. So I think that is quite good. So thank you for being here with us. And I would also like to thank everyone who decided to join our live session today. Before we conclude, I would also like to draw everyone's attention to ICC's upcoming journal on circular economy. So Philippe, we are coming up with a journal on circular economy, which happens to be the first journal on circular economy in India. And it's in collaboration with the Indian Plastics Institute. And the journal shall be launched online through an event on 11th February 2022 at 11:30 a.m. IST. And the link to join the session will be in the chat box. So whoever would like to register is most welcome to attend the session with us. So, yes, thank you so much for joining us. We will be back at the same time next week. And if you don't want to miss out on any updates or future conversations, do follow our social media pages and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Once again, thank you so much and see you next week at the Circular Chat. Thank you, Philippe.
Thank you. Thank you.